Raise your hand if you're always trying to get everything just right and you're overwhelmed and exhausted because nothing ever seems quite good enough. You're trying to do everything for everybody and you lay in bed at night wondering who you let down. This was me for most of my life, driven by the need for everything to be perfect, afraid of what would happen if things didn't always seem perfect. This video is about how we've turned doing our best into thinking that things have to be perfect to be good enough. I'm giving you 5 ways that perfectionism wreaks havoc in our lives and 3 ways to crush it, including the one thing that made me quit perfectionism for good. Awareness is the first step to any change, and as an ex-people-pleasing procrastinating perfectionist, being aware is key in order to not slip back into old patterns because it's easy to do. So don't get me wrong, I still have to constantly check myself so that I don't get back into perfecting. Here are 5 things that perfectionism causes us to do. The first thing is that perfectionism causes us to get into negative thought patterns. When we equate something not being perfect with failure, our brain, our subconscious mind hears that, and we continue to repeat that thought to ourselves, and the subconscious mind continues to hear that. And the mind's job is to do what we tell it to do. And how do we tell it what to do? By our thoughts. So when we repeat thoughts to ourselves, like if it's not perfect, it's not good enough, or I failed, the subconscious mind hears that and takes it as the truth and then keeps that pattern alive. And the more we repeat it to ourselves, the stronger the pattern gets, the stronger the belief gets that that is a truth. And again, the brain has to do what you tell it, and you're telling it that that is a truth, and so it has to keep that alive. And where does this fear of being perceived as a failure if we're not perfect come from? It comes from past programming that if we get approved of, then we're accepted. So we strive to be perfect because we are afraid if we're not, that we'll be found out. The second thing is that perfectionism takes such a physical toll on us. When we strive for perfectionism all the time, we end up being overwhelmed sometimes by even the smallest tasks. This overwhelm can cause us also then to get into procrastination, and it becomes this vicious cycle of not being able to complete things because we are trying to be perfect. Then we get stressed, then we procrastinate, and it's just this vicious cycle. This causes us so much stress. One of the worst things about this physical aspect of perfectionism is that because we're in a stress state, our body pumps out cortisol. And for women in particular, that hormone is what causes belly fat, especially in midlife. Not something that you wanted to hear, right? That comes from perfectionism, but it's true. If you are a perfectionist trying to break free of that, then I invite you to join my 12 Days of StressMas challenge, which will be starting here early December. Just make sure you're subscribed to this channel so that you get updates on all the videos about 12 Days of StressMas. Perfectionism also causes you to play small, and here's how. When we try to be perfect, we say yes to way too many things, and then we get overwhelmed, and then we start not showing up. We start ghosting people. We don't show up as our authentic selves because we have taken on too much. We're in overwhelm, we're exhausted, and we don't know how to show up as our authentic self and let our flaws be seen, because that is what we're trying to prevent by trying to be perfect. Maybe you end up catching yourself laying in bed worried about how to back out of something that you've committed to, or maybe you end up even ghosting people because you are so overwhelmed you can't show up for them. Perfectionism also keeps us from taking risks. I know I used to have this belief that if I couldn't do it perfect, then I wasn't even going to try it at all. I wouldn't even start things. And so I missed out on a lot of things because I was afraid that I couldn't do it perfectly, so I didn't even try it. Is that you? Does perfectionism keep you from showing up in that way and taking risks? Because perfectionists think that there's a right and a wrong way to do things, we keep trying and we get in this vicious cycle, and that causes us this fifth thing, which is burnout. We just keep pushing ourselves, telling ourselves that it needs to be better, there needs to be more, that there's more to do. And our bodies physically can't handle that, and neither can our brains. Our mental capacity gets shot. When we are perfectionists, it's hard for us to delegate. If I do it, I know it will get done right, is what we tell ourselves. No one else is stepping up, so I guess I need to. Or we tell ourselves, I know I have the skills to get this done. Why is it so hard to do it? And we keep pushing ourselves to do more. Or we tell ourselves, I can do that better. And we keep trying to make it better. Ultimately, all of this perfecting causes us to think that we're not good enough. And then things happen in our life to further punctuate that message. Things like getting a divorce, or your spouse having an affair, or getting fired from your job, which all of those have happened to me. Those things all make us think, oh my gosh, I wasn't perfect enough. I wasn't good enough, and therefore I need to try harder, because if only I was more perfect, those things wouldn't have happened. One of my next videos that I'm putting together is how, when I got fired from my job at the age of 57, one of the first thoughts I had was, oh my gosh, they're going to find out how many things I did not do perfectly. Make sure that you're subscribed to be alerted of when that video releases. How do we shift out of perfecting? I'm going to tell you, and the third thing that I'm going to tell you is the one that was key for me to crush this perfectionism and stop worrying about how to be perfect and how to try and make everything else perfect. The first thing is to accept help and accept things as good enough from yourself and from other people. Get rid of the mindset that no one can do it as good as you, because this keeps you from being able to accept help from others, and it keeps you from being able to accept things as good enough. Perfectionists are very critical of themselves, but what they don't realize is they can end up being very critical of other people as well. And think about how when the shoe is on the other foot, it doesn't feel very good when you're not allowed to help because the other person thinks that they can do it better. I was that person. I wouldn't allow other people to help me because I thought I could do it better. And they realize that, right? You can feel that energy. Remember that our best is different every day. You don't have the same amount of energy every day, but expecting that you should be able to do exactly the same things you did yesterday, today, it doesn't work. It's self-defeating. You don't always have to be giving 110% to be at your best, to be doing your best. There are some days that you have the energy to run higher, but there are other days when your body needs to slow down and rest, and that is still you doing your best. The old saying that my grandparents used to say to me, good, better, best, never let it rest until the good is better and the better best, teaches us that we have to keep striving for this impossible, unrealistic goal, and it sets us up to be perfectionists. The second thing in shifting out of perfectionism is to understand that you are a meaning-making machine. We are meaning-making machines, and we make things mean something, and usually we make them mean something about us. They didn't text me back. I didn't get invited. My marriage ended. He had an affair. I got fired from my job. We make it mean something. All of these events, we make it mean something about us. Even something as simple as, if I take a nap when there's work to do, that means I'm lazy. We make up these stories about not getting this thing, not getting it right, not getting it perfect enough, what it means about me. But these are all made up stories. Nothing in life has any meaning except for the meaning you give it. Let that sink in. Nothing in your life has any meaning except for the meaning that you give it. You give everything meaning. The beautiful thing about that realization is it's freeing, because if I give everything meaning, that means I can give it the meaning that I want. So why would I give it the meaning of that it needs to be perfect in order for me to be liked or accepted? Why would I not give it a different meaning? And the third thing about perfectionism, this is what allowed me to let go of the need to be perfect. This one thing, and that is the meaning of imperfect. So this is cliche, right? Because there is no such thing as perfect. And so I got to thinking about that, thinking, well, if there's no such thing as perfect, then what does imperfect mean? And so I looked up the definition of imperfect. And most of us think of imperfect as flawed or faulty, but there's actually the root of imperfect is imperfectus. And in Latin, that means incomplete. And I was like, wow. It was such a freeing thought for me. It was such a relief because I am incomplete. Incomplete means that my life is not over yet, right? Complete means that I would be dead, that my life would be over. So I got this new thought around being imperfect is just that something is not complete, that my life is not complete, and I'm okay with that. So I'm okay with being imperfect. Leave a comment below because I would love to know what your thoughts are on that. Does that open up something different for you like it did for me? Bottom line is that perfectionism is really about one thing, and that is seeking external validation in order to get approval, to feel accepted. It's a people-pleasing behavior, and we perfect to prove that we are worthy. But the thing is, we were born worthy. We don't have to prove that to anyone. Awareness is key for shifting anything in our lives, and I hope this video has brought some new awareness, some light to how perfectionism is impacting you in your life. I know firsthand how perfectionism keeps us from sharing our gifts because we tell ourselves that our gifts aren't good enough, that we're not good enough. Don't let your gifts die with you because you couldn't get them perfect enough. The truth is that we're gifted and we're imperfect. Someone needs the gifts that you have to bring to the world. So remember that you are 100% worthy. You were born worthy, and don't let the thought that you're not perfect enough keep you from sharing what you have to share with the world. Thanks for watching and commenting. I love to read all of your comments. I read them all personally, and I would love to hear how this video on overcoming perfectionism landed with you. And if you're still here, remember again to subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of the 12 Days of StressMas challenge, which is coming up first part of December. And 3 ways to crush it, including Alrighty then. Oh my gosh. Kids and ducks and dogs, oh my.